Hi, my name is Daniel, and you're watching Unrivaled Investing. On this channel, I try to find potential multi-baggers, the types of stocks that can go up hundreds or even thousands of percent over time. One company that has gone up around 2,000% in just the last few years is Microstrategy, MSTR. This has far outpaced Bitcoin, the major US indices, gold and silver, along with the big tech stocks, including Wall Street favorite NVIDIA. Usually, a company will increase its value by selling more goods or services or raising the price. One such company that I've called out is AppLovin, which in full disclosure, I own shares of. Check out my most recent video on AppLovin stock. What you have here with MicroStrategy is a bit different. They aim to be the first Bitcoin treasury company, where their goal is to issue debt and equity to buy Bitcoin. And now you might wonder, how much are they issuing? The answer is a boatload. A Bitcoin boatload, because they're issuing $21 billion in equity, $21 billion, this is in dollars, $21 billion in fixed income. This at least are these targets for the next few years. So a total of $42 billion that they aim to raise over the next few years. This was inspired by the answer to the meaning of life from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this $42 billion target. They also do have a software company, a software business that's, ties back to MicroStrategy's legacy operations. And, frankly, when you look at the underlying fundamentals in this business, it's hard to justify, let's say, more than $1 billion, maybe $2 billion valuation for their software segment. You could see in the most recent quarter, it had declining revenue year over year, declining profitability year over year. And frankly, it's sort of a rounding error relative to the story that you see with MicroStrategy, which is increasing their Bitcoin holdings over time. And you can see how that has gone up significantly. And as of the third quarter, 2024, they had a total cost of around $10 billion in Bitcoin, and they had purchased around 252,000 coins. They are truly a believer, and recently they are accelerating that purchase with the announcement of the world's largest at-the-money stock offering to buy Bitcoin of around $21 billion. These are mind-bogglingly large numbers, and you can see not only are they looking to issue a lot of stock, they've also issued a lot of debt, and you can see there are billions of dollars in debt due in the coming years at very low interest rates. The reason why it's such low interest rates is because it's converting. These are all convertible notes that convert into the share price, and you can see it's generally at lower share prices, much lower share prices than where it currently trades. So the strategy is issue stock, issue bonds that convert at a, let's say, higher share price, but pay very low in interest. But the theory is that as long as Bitcoin continues to go exponentially in price over time, that is a fantastic trade. So that's how their strategy: issue stock, issue bonds, buy Bitcoin, and look like a genius, go up several thousand%, rinse and repeat. This strategy has accelerated, as I mentioned, just in the last few weeks, which during the quiet November, early December period, they were busy bees. A lot of people in the US were having their stateside turkey comas, where they're like, oh my gosh, I ate too much. Here it is, Michael Saylor. He was purchasing $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin at an average price of around $96,000 per Bitcoin. And you can see that as of their most recent update, December 1st, they held an aggregate of 402,000 Bitcoins, a substantial step up, with a purchase price of approximately $23.4 billion. And so the average price is now around $58,000 per Bitcoin. So you have this aggressive buying stepping up in the last few weeks in Bitcoin. So what are my thoughts on MicroStrategy, in the years ahead? First of all, this is not financial advice. I don't own any shares in MicroStrategy. And also, just last week, Venu, a premium member of the Unrivaled Investing community, shared the following. This is a direct quote: "Joining your membership has been one of my best investments, both in terms of value and personal growth. Gradually adopting your ideas has made a significant and noticeable difference in my investing journey." So if you are looking for compelling ideas, come check out Unrivaled Investing. The premium tier does have exclusive access to our Discord community. I think in order to understand MicroStrategy, you really have to have a view on Bitcoin. My thoughts on Bitcoin, really, I've been getting more educated over time. At this point, I do not own any Bitcoin, but books like Broken Money have made a very solid case that helped me understand the asymmetric bullish upside potential. So I could see myself potentially getting long in the future. One of the main cases that Broken Money makes is that with nearly half the world living under authoritarian regimes, Bitcoin provides a decentralized, censorship-resistant asset, safeguarding wealth from government seizure or debasement. So, if you are hard at work on something and you're worried that the government can just, come in, and maybe it's a really unstable region of the world where, there are terrorist organizations sort of just running around, running amok. Well, you don't want them to just easily steal whatever savings you have. And if you have it in something like gold, a gold bar, that's easier to confiscate versus maybe a little, zip drive or something like that you can carry around with some sort of code. So I look at this and I'm thinking to myself, for a lot of people, there is value here in Bitcoin. So it is important to understand that. And also Bitcoin's fixed supply of around 21 million coins, you're not going to see that grow to 42 million coins or something like that. The fixed supply of around 21 million coins positions it as a potential hedge against fiat currency devaluation, especially in an era of rising monetary instability and inflation. So the risks that, let's say, the US government might say, whoopsie doopsie, we can't get our fiscal deficit under control. Maybe Doge doesn't work out and, inflation runs amok and, you have to have a lot of monetary printing to sort of deal with the outsized debt loads. And there is a history. And I got to say, Broken Money does a great job. There was a story about Britain during, I think, World War I, where, they didn't have enough money. So they effectively lied to the public about like, oh, we did a successful debt offering. And I thought it was just incredible because they lied to the public for 100 years. And then 100 years later, they announced, whoopsie doopsie, we actually didn't have the money and we didn't successfully raise the money, but we just printed the money instead. And that's why inflation picked up quite a bit. So you do have these dynamics where governments do have a history of lying to the public, and they do have a history of devaluation. And so something like Bitcoin, you're less likely to have that dynamic because it is this, blockchain 20 fixed supply of coins, where you can easily see, the public ledger. The other argument for is that Bitcoin, at its current valuation, you're talking about a couple $1 trillion versus, let's say, global assets of stocks, real estate, bonds, you're all talking about $100 trillion. So if it continues to gain as part of the global asset value pie, then you do have that potential for Bitcoin maybe to become maybe $1 million coin someday instead of the sub $100,000. So that's part of the mega bull thesis that Michael Saylor at Microstrategy has, which is that if you truly believe that Bitcoin could be, let's say, $1 million a coin, or possibly even several $1 million a coin in the future, which Michael Saylor believes, then the rational move, if you're all in on that strategy, then the rational move, I'm not saying it's rational for you or I if you don't believe it, but if you truly believe it, then the rational move for Michael Saylor is to say, hey, I'm just going to issue a ton of debt, a ton of stock to buy it at what I believe are irrationally low prices, because long term, maybe you go to that very high level. I'm not a believer, as I've already mentioned. Maybe I'm not a believer yet. I'm still thinking about it, in fairness. I welcome the comments below. I think it's important to have an open mind, and I think the arguments in Broken Money are actually very, very good. So thinking about the valuation for MicroStrategy, currently around $380 per share, and looking at their adjusted diluted share count around 270 million, that gets to around a market cap of around $103 billion for MicroStrategy shares. So $103 billion valuation for MicroStrategy. In contrast, their Bitcoin holdings of around 402,000 at $95,000 per Bitcoin is only worth $38 billion. Only $38 billion among friends. I think that is important to reflect on. If you have a company where the valuation is 100 plus billion and the underlying assets are, let's say, round up $40 billion, that's a huge $60 billion disconnect. So that means Wall Street's giving a huge premium. Investors are giving a huge $60 billion premium on MicroStrategy that they're effectively saying, I believe that Bitcoin's going higher. I like this sort of juice strategy, and I'm willing to pay a premium for it. Personally, I think that's not really the strategy of value investing. You can do value growth investing, but the value strategy would say, hey, I'm looking for the type of situation where I believe the underlying assets are growing significantly over time, and I can buy at a reasonable price relative to the assets. Maybe in the case of MicroStrategy, you would say, hey, their Bitcoin holdings are worth 38 billion, and I can buy MicroStrategy stock at 35 billion or 30 billion, and that would be your margin of safety. So this is clearly not a margin of safety when you're assigning a very sizable, multi-billion dollar, let's say $60 billion premium. So that is important to reflect, that does create a lot of downside risk. If I personally wanted to, and if I was a believer like Michael Saylor, what I would personally do instead of buying Microstrategy is I'd consider something like Interactive Brokers. That's where I currently keep my funds, and compare buying crypto and Interactive Brokers versus some of the other major exchanges. You could see it's much cheaper. And I would consider saying, wait a second, their strategy, Bitcoin MicroStrategy's approach, MicroStrategy strategy is to lever up and issue lots of stock to buy Bitcoin. So if I was, all in on it, then I would probably use a similar approach, but for my own account where I don't have to have that huge markup that you effectively have with MicroStrategy, that huge premium. Why not, if I were a believer, once again, I'm not doing this, then why not go through someone like Interactive Brokers, where you're paying, the low, and see the link below for Interactive Brokers, where you have the fixed, you buy it at the market rate for Bitcoin as opposed to this huge premium. And then if you're really bullish, then you borrow up on it. I'm once again not doing that. But that would be, in my opinion, would probably yield similar results to MicroStrategy over time. And so I would, if I wanted to follow that strategy, I think that strategy at this point, given the premium that the market's assigning MicroStrategy, I suspect that approach of leveraging up a personal account would probably do better than MicroStrategy. Now, the flip side is that MicroStrategy has the advantage of being able to issue lower cost debt, where they could say, hey, it converts into my share. So there is some sort of advantage there, but there are disadvantages as well, because Wall Street sees your maturity table, and there can be funny business. Wall Street sharks will look at at companies' debt maturities and think, maybe I could, squeeze Bitcoin prices such that you become a forced seller, and then they'll create problems. I don't think that's likely at this point, given how much stock that they've issued and how little their debt is relative to their sizable Bitcoin holdings. But Bitcoin can be quite volatile. So, I mean, you could have a forced selling type of dynamic where the stock would drop, but it would have to be such a huge drop in Bitcoin prices. This is too hard for me at this point. And I certainly, would not get involved with MicroStrategy given that significant premium. I would be more inclined to think about, okay, do I want to make Bitcoin a part of my journey just to buy it part of my portfolio at Interactive Brokers? If this video has been helpful for you, please make a point of hitting that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching Unrivaled Investing.